After 7 years, he kicked her out. She came back with twins and a secret that shattered his life. The champagne flowed like liquid gold that evening as Michael Harrison stood at the pinnacle of his success. The ballroom of New York's most prestigious hotel glittered with the who's who of American business royalty, all gathered to celebrate his crowning as Entrepreneur of the Year. At 40, Michael had built Horizon Technologies from a startup in his garage to a billion-dollar tech empire that had just secured an international deal that made global headlines. To Michael Harrison, the crowd echoed the toast, raising crystal flutes that caught the light from chandeliers overhead. The man who turned the impossible into the inevitable. Michael's perfectly tailored suit couldn't hide his athletic frame, maintained by pre-dawn workouts despite grueling 18-hour workdays. His salt and pepper hair, prematurely gray at the temples, only added to his distinguished appearance, making him the embodiment of success, power, and control. "I hear Vanity Fair wants you for their cover next month," said Senator Williams, clapping Michael's shoulder. "Technology's most eligible bachelor. Women across America must be swooning." Michael offered his practiced smile, confident but not arrogant, approachable yet mysterious. It was a smile that had closed billion-dollar deals and charmed business partners across 5 continents. "I'm married to my company, Senator. It's a demanding relationship that leaves little room for distractions." His best friend and business partner, Richard Collins, approached, champagne in hand. Richard was the only person who knew Michael before the money, before the power, before the armor of success he now wore like a second skin. "Perhaps it's time to diversify your portfolio, Mike. Even titans need something to come home to besides an empty penthouse." For a fraction of a second, Michael's perfect facade cracked. A shadow crossed his face, so brief that only someone who had known him for 20 years would notice. Richard had touched a nerve, the one topic that remained off limits even between them. "Some investments aren't worth the risk," Michael replied, his voice dropping to ensure only Richard could hear. "I learned that lesson 7 years ago." The conversation shifted as it always did when the past threatened to surface, but later that night, as Michael's private elevator ascended 60 floors to his penthouse, he couldn't outrun his thoughts. The cavernous apartment with its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan's glittering skyline suddenly felt like a beautiful, empty shell. He poured himself 2 fingers of 30-year-old scotch and moved to his study. The bottom drawer of his desk remained locked at all times. Not even his housekeeper had the key. With a quick glance over his shoulder, as though someone might witness this moment of weakness, he unlocked it and removed a simple silver frame. Olivia. Her eyes seemed to look right through him even in the photograph. Warm, intelligent, full of life and promises now broken. 7 years hadn't dulled the sharp edge of memory. Her laughing in the rain outside their favorite coffee shop, her passionate arguments about psychology theories, her head on his chest in the early hours of morning. Olivia Martinez, the only woman who had ever seen behind his walls, whom he had loved ferociously, and then cast out of his life with equal intensity. "Mr. Harrison," his AI home system interrupted, "you have an early meeting with the board tomorrow regarding the Singapore expansion." Michael placed the photo back in its prison, locking away the memories with it. "Thank you, Aura. Prepare my briefing documents." As he stood to undress for bed, his phone buzzed with a text. "Turn on NBC News now." Curious, Michael activated his wall screen. The news anchor's voice filled the room. "Breaking tonight. Harrison Technologies stock jumped 15 points following their historic international expansion announcement, cementing CEO Michael Harrison's reputation as the most formidable business leader of his generation. But sources tell NBC that a storm may be brewing on the horizon for the tech titan. Michael frowned, increasing the volume. "A woman claiming to have information that could destroy everything Harrison has built has approached several news outlets. While the nature of these claims remains unclear, our sources indicate they relate to events from Harrison's past that have been buried for years. Harrison's representatives have declined to comment." The glass of scotch slipped from Michael's hand, shattering on the marble floor, as his perfect world began to crack. Along with it, write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. The morning after the gala, Michael strode through the gleaming headquarters of Harrison Technologies with his usual commanding presence. Employees straightened as he passed, offering respectful nods that he returned with practiced precision. Behind his carefully maintained expression, his mind raced with the implications of last night's news report. "The board is assembled in the Olympus room, sir," his executive assistant Jordan informed him, matching his brisk pace perfectly. "And Mr. Collins asked to speak with you privately before the meeting." "Tell Richard 5 minutes in my office," Michael replied, not breaking stride. The 50-story glass and steel monument to his success offered breathtaking views of Central Park, but Michael barely glanced out the windows anymore. Success had become the air he breathed, expected, necessary, but no longer exhilarating. Richard was already waiting, pacing the length of Michael's minimalist office. Unlike Michael's carefully controlled demeanor, Richard's concern was plainly visible. "You saw the news." It wasn't a question. A vague threat from an unnamed woman, Michael dismissed, setting down his briefcase. "Probably someone looking for a settlement." Richard's expression remained grave. "Mike, I think it might be about Olivia." The name hung in the air between them. Michael's hand froze on his coffee cup. "That's impossible. Olivia disappeared 7 years ago. She wouldn't resurface now." "Someone's been asking questions," Richard persisted. "About what happened the day she left. About the evidence you had against her." Michael's jaw tightened. "That case is closed, Richard. I don't discuss it, not even with you. Maybe it's time you did," Richard pressed, lowering his voice. "Because whatever you think happened between you and Olivia—" "I know exactly what happened," Michael snapped, his composure cracking. "I saw the messages, the photos. She betrayed me while planning our future together. End of story." The intercom buzzed. "Mr. Harrison, the board is waiting." "We're done here," Michael said decisively, straightening his tie. Richard blocked his path. "Mike, as your friend, whatever's coming, you need to be prepared. Your side of the story might not be the whole truth." The board meeting progressed with Michael's typical command as he outlined the 5-year strategy for Harrison Technologies' global expansion. Yet halfway through his presentation, he noticed the new legal department head, Claire Donovan, studying him with unusual intensity. Something in her expression, a searching quality, a familiarity, momentarily derailed his concentration. "Mr. Harrison?" the board chairman prompted when Michael paused mid-sentence. "Apologies," he recovered smoothly. "As I was saying, our Asian market penetration targets." After the meeting, Michael returned to his office, instructing Jordan to hold all calls. He needed to think. If someone was digging into his past with Olivia, he needed to know who and why. He reached for his secure phone to call his private investigator when Jordan's voice came through the intercom. "Sir, I know you said no interruptions, but there's a Camilla Winters insisting on seeing you. She says—" Jordan hesitated. "She says it's about what happened 7 years ago and that you'll want to hear what she has to say." Michael froze. Camilla Winters, his former assistant who had worked for him when Olivia was in his life. The woman who had first brought him the evidence of Olivia's betrayal. "Send her in," he commanded, his heart beginning to race despite his outward calm. Camilla entered, 7 years older but instantly recognizable. Gone was the eager-to-please assistant. In her place stood a woman who appeared both determined and frightened. "Mr. Harrison," she began, twisting her hands together. "I've been carrying this burden for too long. I have to tell you the truth, even if it costs me everything." "What truth?" Michael asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Camilla met his eyes, her own filled with tears. "About the evidence against Olivia. About what really happened." She placed a worn manila envelope on his desk with trembling hands. "It was all a lie, Mr. Harrison. All of it. And I helped create it. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go." Michael stared at the envelope on his desk as though it might explode. The perfect silence of his office, designed with state-of-the-art soundproofing to ensure the privacy of a titan's decisions, suddenly felt suffocating. "Explain." "Yourself," he commanded, not touching the envelope. Carefully. Camilla sank into the chair opposite him, her professional composure crumbling. 7 years ago, when you and Olivia were engaged, I was instructed to monitor her communications, to look for anything suspicious. She swallowed hard. When I found nothing, I was told that wasn't good enough. Told by whom? Michael's voice had taken on the dangerous edge his competitors had learned to fear. Your cousin, Isabella Harrison. The name struck Michael like a physical blow. Isabella, his only living family, his chief financial officer, his trusted advisor since childhood, the person who had held him as he raged and grieved after Olivia's betrayal. Isabella showed me how to doctor the emails, create false records of calls, edit the photographs. Camilla's words tumbled out faster now as though she feared losing courage. The man in the photos with Olivia was an actor Isabella hired. They were innocent pictures taken without Olivia's knowledge, then manipulated to appear intimate. You expect me to believe this? Michael's voice was deadly quiet. That my own cousin orchestrated an elaborate scheme to frame the woman I was going to marry? Camilla opened the envelope with shaking hands, spreading its contents across his desk. Original unedited photos, records of payments to the actor, emails between Isabella and herself planning the deception. Isabella told me it was for your own good, that Olivia was using you, that she'd destroy everything you were building. Tears spilled down Camilla's cheeks. I believed her. Or maybe I just wanted to believe her because the bonus she offered would pay for my mother's cancer treatments. Michael picked up one of the original photos. Olivia sitting across from a stranger at a cafe, clearly a business meeting, not a romantic rendezvous. Next to it lay the doctored version he'd been shown 7 years ago, with subtle changes to body language, expressions cropped and altered to suggest intimacy. A thunderstorm of memories crashed through his mind. Olivia. Standing in this very office, tears streaming down her face, swearing her innocence. His own voice cold with rage. I have proof, Olivia. Don't insult me by lying. Her final, devastated words before he had security escort her out. I have loved you with everything I am, Michael. Someday you'll realize what you've thrown away. He had dismissed it as the manipulative parting shot of a woman caught in her deception. Now, with trembling hands, he picked up the document that cut deepest. A fake email supposedly from Olivia to her lover, which read, Michael is just a stepping stone. Once we're married, his money becomes our opportunity. The words that had hardened his heart against her, that had confirmed his deepest fear, that like his father, who had abandoned the family when Michael was a child, he too was unworthy of genuine love. Mr. Harrison? Camilla's voice seemed to come from far away. There's more. He looked up, his expression unreadable. Isabella had me monitor Olivia's medical records too. The day before everything happened, Olivia had a doctor's appointment. She was pregnant, Mr. Harrison. 6 weeks pregnant with your child. The world tilted on its axis. Michael gripped the edge of his desk to steady himself. She never told me, he whispered, more to himself than to Camilla. She was going to surprise you that weekend. I saw the baby clothes she bought, tiny little shoes. She was so happy. Michael's control, the disciplined command of emotion that had built an empire, shattered completely. Get out, he said, his voice raw. Sir, get out, he roared, rising to his full height. Camilla fled, leaving the evidence scattered across his desk like the wreckage of the life he could have had. With shaking hands, Michael pressed the intercom. Jordan, cancel all my appointments and find Isabella. Tell her I need to see her immediately. Here, alone. The storm that had been building since the news report broke the night before finally unleashed its fury as Michael swept everything from his desk in one violent motion. Crystal. Awards shattered against the wall. His laptop cracked against the floor. A primal sound of rage and grief tore from his throat as 7 years of certainty crumbled around him. When his fury finally exhausted itself, he stood amid the destruction, breathing heavily. With sudden purpose, he unlocked his phone and dialed Richard. "I need the best private investigators in the country," he said without preamble. "No expense spared, no stone unturned. Find Olivia Martinez. Find her now." As Michael hung up, the office door opened. Isabella Harrison stood in the doorway, her expression shifting from confidence to uncertainty as she surveyed the destruction. "Michael, what's happened? Jordan said it was urgent." 7 years ago," Michael interrupted, his voice terrifyingly calm. "You showed me evidence that Olivia was unfaithful, that she was using me." Isabella stepped further into the office, carefully navigating around the broken glass. "I remember. It was horrible having to be the one to show you, but you needed to know the truth before you married her." "The truth," Michael repeated, picking up one of the original, unaltered photos from his desk. "Is this what truth looks like to you, Isabella?" Her eyes widened almost imperceptibly, a flash of recognition, then fear, quickly masked. "I don't understand. Don't lie to me!" The words exploded out of him. "Camilla Winters just left this office after confessing everything. The doctored photos, the fake emails, the actor you hired. All of it." Isabella's careful composure slipped, her aristocratic features hardening. "Camilla Winters is a disgruntled former employee looking for money or revenge. Whatever she showed you was clearly fabricated. The only fabrication was the evidence against Olivia." Michael advanced toward her, 7 years of misdirected pain fueling each step. "Why, Isabella? Why would you destroy the one thing in my life that mattered beyond this company?" Something in Isabella's expression changed, the mask of concern dropping away completely, revealing something darker, more possessive. "Because she wasn't right for you," Isabella hissed. "This socialite nobody with her bleeding heart psychology degree and her grand plans to humanize your business strategy. She would have ruined everything we built." "We?" Michael echoed incredulously. "This company bears my name, my vision, and my sacrifice." Isabella's composure shattered completely. "Who was there when your mother died and you nearly drank yourself to death? Who picked up the pieces when your father abandoned you? Who has stood beside you every step of the way while you built this empire?" "Me." Understanding dawned on Michael with sickening clarity. "You were in love with me." Isabella's laugh was brittle. "Love? This was never about love. This was about what we could accomplish together without distractions. Olivia was making you weak, making you question your priorities. She would have changed you. She was pregnant," Michael said, his voice hollow. "Did you know that too?" Something flickered in Isabella's eyes, genuine surprise, then calculation. If she was, how convenient that she never mentioned it until after she was caught. A desperate ploy to "Get out," Michael cut her off, disgusted. "You're fired. Clear your office and be gone within the hour or I'll have security remove you." Isabella's face contorted with rage. "You think you can just throw me away, after everything I've done for you? This company is as much mine as it is yours." "Not anymore." Michael pressed the intercom. "Jordan, please escort Ms. Harrison to her office to collect her personal belongings. She is no longer employed by Harrison Technologies. Her access to all systems is to be terminated immediately, and have legal prepare the paperwork." Isabella's expression shifted from rage to cold calculation. "You'll regret this, Michael. We're family. The only family you have left." "No," Michael replied, turning his back on her. "I had a family. You took them from me." As security arrived to escort Isabella out, Michael stood at his window, staring unseeingly at the city below. Somewhere out there was Olivia, and possibly his child. A child who would be almost 7 years old now. A child who had grown up without him, believing they had been abandoned. Richard found him there an hour later, still staring at the horizon. "Mike?" What the hell happened here? Michael turned, his expression altered by grief and determination. I need to find them, Richard. I need to find Olivia and my child. Child? Richard echoed, stunned. She was pregnant when I sent her away. Michael's voice broke. I need to make this right. Whatever it takes. Richard studied his oldest friend's face. And if she doesn't want to be found? Michael had no answer. For the first time in 7 years, the most powerful CEO in America had no plan, no strategy, only the wreckage of what should have been, and the desperate hope for what still might be. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. 3 weeks passed in a blur of investigation and revelation. Michael withdrew from the public eye, citing a strategic planning retreat to explain his absence from Harrison Technologies. In reality, he barely left the war room he'd established in his penthouse, where an elite team of private investigators reported their findings directly to him. We've narrowed it down to Spain, said Abigail Chen, the former FBI agent leading the search. Specifically, a coastal town called Nerja in Andalusia. Olivia Martinez moved there. Approximately 6.5 years ago. Michael, unshaven and exhausted from sleepless nights, studied the satellite images of the picturesque Mediterranean town. What else? She legally changed her name to Olivia Martin. She works as a child psychologist at a local clinic and… Abigail hesitated, exchanging glances with her team. And, Michael prompted, his heart hammering in his chest. She has 2 children, Mr. Harrison. Twins, a boy and a girl. The room seemed to tilt. Twins. Not just the one child he had imagined during these weeks of searching, but 2. 2 children his blood who had grown up without him, who might not even know he existed. Their names? He asked, his voice barely audible. Lucas and Sophia Martin. They're 6 years old. Michael closed his eyes, absorbing the impact of those words. 6 years old. Born 7 months after he had thrown Olivia out of his life. His children. I need everything, he said, opening his eyes with renewed determination. Where they live, where the children go to school, their daily routines. Everything. Sir, Abigail said carefully, we've compiled a thorough dossier, but I feel I should caution you. Ms. Martin has built a completely new life. She appears stable, respected in the community. The children seem healthy and well-adjusted. Your sudden appearance could be disruptive. I'm well aware, Michael replied, his tone making it clear the subject was closed. Have my jet prepared. I leave for Spain tonight. After the investigators departed, Richard arrived, concern evident on his face. Disappearing to Spain? That's your plan? He asked, finding Michael packing a suitcase, not with his usual designer suits, but casual clothes more appropriate for a Mediterranean town. I don't have a choice, Richard. You always have a choice. That's what being Michael Harrison is all about. Richard poured himself a drink from the bar. The board is already nervous about Isabella's abrupt departure. If you vanish too, the company will survive. Michael continued, packing methodically. You can handle things while I'm gone. It's not just the company I'm worried about, Richard admitted. It's you. What exactly do you expect to happen when you show up in this woman's life after 7 years? After what you did? Michael stopped, his hands gripping the edge of his suitcase. I don't expect anything. I don't have the right to expect anything. But I need to try to make this right. And if she wants nothing to do with you, if she's moved on, if she has someone else in her life now? The possibility sent a surge of irrational jealousy through Michael, followed immediately by shame. What right did he have to feel possessive after what he'd done? Then I'll respect her wishes, he said finally. But the children, my children, they deserve to know the truth, even if that truth is that their father is a man who made the worst mistake of his life. Richard studied his friend, the implacable businessman who had built an empire through sheer force of will, now humbled by the prospect of facing his greatest failure. I've never seen you like this, Richard observed quietly. Michael looked up, his expression raw with an emotion Richard had never witnessed in him before. I've never felt like this. Like I've been asleep for 7 years and just woke up to find I've lost everything that actually matters. 20 hours later, Michael stood on a balcony in Nerja, the Mediterranean spread before him like a sapphire blanket beneath the Spanish sun. His investigative team had secured him a villa overlooking the sea, private yet close to Olivia's world. From here he could see the neighborhood where she lived with their children in a modest but beautiful house, with a red-tiled roof and a garden filled with bougainvillea. The intelligence briefing had been thorough. Olivia had used her psychology degree to build a respected practice specializing in children with trauma. She spoke fluent Spanish now. The twins attended an international school where they were thriving. Lucas was passionate about science and technology, Sophia about art and music. They were healthy, happy, loved. Without him. For 3 days, Michael observed from a distance, paralyzed by an unfamiliar emotion. Fear. Not the strategic calculation of risk he was accustomed to in business, but raw, primal fear of rejection, of causing more pain, of discovering that his children might be better off without him in their lives. On the 4th day, fate intervened. Michael had taken to walking along the beach in the early mornings. Finding the solitude helped clear his mind. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the soccer ball rolling toward him until it bumped against his foot. "Perdón, señor," called a young boy's voice. "Mi pelota, por favor." Michael looked up to find a child racing toward him, a boy of about 6, with dark hair and eyes that hit Michael like a physical blow. His own eyes, looking back at him from a face that somehow combined his features with Olivia's, Lucas. Time seemed to stop as Michael stared at his son, standing before him, expectantly holding out his hands for the ball. "Do you speak English?" Michael asked, his voice hoarse as he picked up the ball. "Yes, sir," Lucas answered confidently, switching languages with the ease of a child raised bilingual. "My mom's American. She says it's important I keep practicing both languages." "She sounds very smart," Michael managed, his heart thundering in his chest as he handed the ball back. "She's the smartest," Lucas agreed proudly. "She helps kids who are sad or scared feel better. She says everyone deserves a chance to be happy." The simplicity of the statement struck Michael to his core. Had he, in his pain and rage, denied Olivia that very chance? "Lucas!" A woman's voice called from further down the beach. "Vamos, we'll be late for school." Michael froze, his eyes lifting to see Olivia standing about 50 yards away. Even at this distance, he would have known her anywhere. Her dark hair was shorter now, falling just below her shoulders, and the Spanish sun had given her skin a golden glow. But her posture, straight-backed, chin lifted, slightly, was exactly as he remembered. Beside her stood a little girl who could only be Sophia, her long dark hair in a braid, clinging to her mother's hand while looking curiously in their direction. "Coming, Mom," Lucas called back. He turned to Michael with a child's easy smile. "Bye, sir. Have a nice day." Michael couldn't speak, couldn't move as his son ran back to his mother and sister. He watched as Olivia bent to say something to Lucas, then straightened, her gaze suddenly locking with Michael's across the distance. Even from yards away, he saw the moment of recognition, her body stiffening, her hand instinctively tightening around Sophia's. For a long moment, they stared at each other across the sand, 7 years of absence suspended between them like a physical thing. Then Olivia turned sharply away, gathering both children close and hurrying them up the beach stairs toward the street. Michael remained rooted to the spot, watching his family, disappear from view. The family he hadn't known existed. The family he had cast away before they had even begun. That night, as he sat on his balcony watching the lights of the town and the reflection of the moon on the sea, his phone rang. "Mr. Harrison, it's Abigail Chen. We've got a situation. Ms. Martin was seen booking flights this afternoon, for herself and both children, to Buenos Aires. departing tomorrow morning. Michael closed his eyes, understanding instantly. Olivia had recognized him, and her immediate response was to run, to protect her children, their children, from him. "What do you want us to do, sir?" Abigail asked. The Michael Harrison of 3 weeks ago would have deployed every resource at his command to prevent their departure, to control the situation. But that Michael Harrison had not yet faced the consequence of his greatest mistake. "Nothing," he said finally. "Do nothing. This is my responsibility now." He ended the call and made another, to the concierge service that catered to the ultra-wealthy. "I need to send a message to Olivia Martin's home address. Immediately. Just a note, no gifts, nothing overwhelming. Can you arrange it?" 20 minutes later, a courier delivered an envelope to Michael containing the card he'd requested. He stared at the blank space, the weight of 7 years pressing down on him as he considered what words could possibly begin to bridge such an abyss. Finally, with a hand that trembled slightly, he wrote, "Olivia, I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but before you leave, I'm asking for one conversation. Not for my sake, but for Lucas and Sophia. The cafe on Calle del Mar, 10 a.m. tomorrow. If you don't come, I will understand, and I will not pursue you further. You have my word. Michael." He sealed the envelope, handed it to the waiting courier, and turned back to the night sea, knowing that by this time tomorrow, he would either have a chance at redemption or lose his children forever. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. The Café Del Mar sat perched on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, its outdoor terrace offering both privacy and a breathtaking view. Michael arrived 30 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner that allowed him to see the approach from all directions. The once confident CEO who could command a boardroom with his mere presence now fidgeted with his coffee cup, rehearsing and discarding opening lines in his mind. 10 o'clock came and went. By 10:15, Michael's hope began to fade. By 10:30, he was preparing to leave, the bitter taste of disappointment far stronger than the espresso before him. "You always were pathologically punctual." The voice froze him mid-movement. He looked up to find Olivia standing before him, her expression guarded, her posture defensive. She wore a simple sundress and minimal makeup, her hair lifted occasionally by the sea breeze. She was more beautiful than he remembered, with a quiet strength that hadn't been there before. "You came," he said, unable to mask his surprise and relief. "Against my better judgment." She remained standing, making no move to sit. "I have exactly 30 minutes before I need to leave for the airport. Whatever you have to say it now." Michael gestured to the chair opposite him. "Please sit, just for a moment." After a beat of hesitation, Olivia sat, her back straight, her hands folded tightly on the table. Up close, he could see the tension in her jaw, the wariness in her eyes. "Where are the children?" he asked softly. "With my neighbor. They don't know anything about you being here." Her voice was cool, controlled. "And they don't know why we're leaving, only that we're taking a special trip." Michael nodded, understanding the implicit message. The twins didn't know who he was. They didn't know he existed. "I suppose I deserve that," he acknowledged quietly. "You suppose?" Olivia's composure cracked slightly, her eyes flashing. "You threw me out of your life like garbage based on lies you never bothered to verify. You called me a gold digger, a liar, a cheat, in front of your entire staff. You had security escort me from the building like a criminal." Her voice thickened. "And then you disappeared, not a word, not a single attempt to hear my side. Each accusation hit him like a physical blow. I know. And there's no excuse for what I did." "Then why are you here, Michael? After 7 years, why now?" "Because I just learned the truth," he answered, forcing himself to meet her gaze. "About what Isabella did. About the pregnancy." Olivia's expression shifted, surprise briefly overtaking anger. "How?" "Camilla. Winters came to me 3 weeks ago with evidence that Isabella fabricated everything. The photos, the emails, all of it. She told me you were pregnant when I... He couldn't finish the sentence. When you threw me away, Olivia completed it for him, her voice steady despite the pain evident in her eyes. Yes, I was 6 weeks pregnant. I had just found out the day before. I was going to surprise you that weekend. The confirmation, despite the investigators' reports, hit Michael with fresh force. Why didn't you tell me? When it happened, why didn't you say anything about the pregnancy? A bitter laugh escaped her. Would you have believed me? In that moment, would you have seen it as anything but a desperate attempt to manipulate you? She shook her head. I had just watched you believe the worst about me without a second's hesitation. The man I thought loved me couldn't even give me the benefit of the doubt. The truth of her words cut deep. Michael had been so certain, so blinded by his own insecurities and Isabella's manipulations, that he would have dismissed a pregnancy announcement as another lie. You're right, he admitted. I wouldn't have believed you then. And that will haunt me for the rest of my life. Something in his tone, the raw honesty perhaps, seemed to reach Olivia. She studied him for a long moment. The great Michael Harrison, admitting he was wrong? The world must be ending, she said, but the edge in her voice had softened slightly. I was more than wrong, Olivia. I was catastrophically, unforgivably wrong. He leaned forward, his eyes never leaving hers. But this isn't about seeking forgiveness I don't deserve. It's about Lucas and Sophia. At the mention of their children, Olivia's expression closed again. What about them? They're my children too, he said gently. Don't they deserve to know who their father is? Even if that person is deeply flawed? They have been perfectly happy without knowing you, Olivia countered. They've never asked about their father because they've never felt the lack of one. I've given them everything they need. I believe you, Michael said sincerely. From everything I've seen and heard, you've been an extraordinary mother. They're incredible children. But someday they'll ask Olivia. Someday they'll want to know the truth. Olivia's hands trembled slightly. She clasped them tighter. And what would I tell them? That their father chose his ego over their mother? That he was so quick to believe the worst, that he never even considered he might be wrong? Tell them the truth, Michael said quietly. All of it. Tell them I made the biggest mistake of my life, that I lost. The most precious thing a man could have because of pride and fear. Tell them their father was a broken man who didn't deserve their mother's love. Tears gathered in Olivia's eyes, though she refused to let them fall. You always did know exactly what to say, didn't you? The perfect words to close. Any deal? This isn't a negotiation, Olivia. I'm not trying to win anything here. If you walk away right now and never want to see me again, I'll respect that. But before you do, he reached into his pocket and removed a slim document folder, placing it on the table between them. This is for the children. Olivia looked at it warily. What is it? Trust funds for both Lucas and Sophia. Already established, irrevocable. Enough to pay for any education they might want, anywhere in the world, and to give them a start in life. No strings attached. He pushed the folder toward her. Whether or not I'm ever part of their lives, they deserve this much from me. Olivia made no move to take the folder. We don't need your money, Michael. I've supported my children perfectly well on my own. Our children, he corrected gently. And I know you have. But this isn't about need. It's about what they deserve. It's the one thing I can give them, even if they never know who I am. Olivia's defenses visibly wavered. And what is it you want in return? Shared custody? Visitation rights? To suddenly play daddy after 7 years of absence? I want nothing you're not willing to give. Michael replied. If you tell me to disappear from your lives forever, I will. But if there's any possibility, any chance at all that I could know them, even just as a friend of their mother's at first, I'm asking you to consider it. Olivia looked away, staring out at the sea. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. You have no idea what it was like, Michael. Being alone, pregnant with twins in a foreign country, building a life from nothing while trying to heal from what you did. No, he agreed. I can't imagine that kind of strength. She turned back to him, her expression less guarded. Why Spain? Why did you think I'd come here? I didn't, Michael admitted. My investigators tracked you here. But now that I've seen it, I understand. It's beautiful. Peaceful. As far from New York and Harrison Technologies as you could get. A ghost of a smile touched Olivia's lips. That was part of it. But also, do you remember our second date? Michael searched his memory. The Spanish restaurant in the village. You said someday you wanted to see the real Spain, not just eat their food. You remembered, she said, genuine surprise in her voice. I remember everything about us. Liv, he said softly, the familiar nickname slipping out unintentionally. Even the things I tried to forget. Something shifted in Olivia's expression. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the first tentative step toward possibility. The children and I have a flight to catch, she said, rising from her seat. Michael's heart sank. I understand. No, you don't, she countered. I need to cancel that flight. And then I need to figure out what to tell two very curious 6-year-olds about why our special trip is postponed. She picked up the folder with the trust documents. This doesn't mean I've decided anything. It just means I'm willing to think about it. Hope, fragile but real, bloomed in Michael's chest. That's all I'm asking for. Olivia paused, studying him one last time. I'm doing this for them, Michael. Not for you. I wouldn't expect anything else, he replied. Honestly. As she turned to leave, she delivered one final comment over her shoulder. The twins have their swimming lesson at the community pool tomorrow at 4. They love ice cream from the stand across the street afterward. If someone happened to be there. She left the invitation unfinished, but clear. Michael watched her walk away, his heart pounding with equal parts fear and possibility. For the first time in 7 years, he felt truly alive. Terrified, hopeful, uncertain of the future, but determined to face it nonetheless. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Richard, calling from New York. The display showed 17 missed calls from various board members and executives, his other life demanding his return. Michael silenced the phone without answering. Some decisions didn't require any deliberation at all. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. The municipal swimming pool of Nerja was nothing like the Olympic-sized private facilities Michael had access to in New York. The blue paint was chipping at the edges, the changing rooms showed signs of wear, and the bleachers consisted of simple aluminum benches. Yet as Michael sat with his sunglasses on, a newspaper open in front of him as casual camouflage, he found the humble setting infinitely more meaningful than any luxury he'd surrounded himself with for years. At precisely 4 p.m., a group of children filed onto the pool deck led by a young instructor. Michael's breath caught as he spotted Lucas and Sophia among them, both wearing matching blue swim caps that made them look even more identical. For 30 minutes he watched as his children learned to swim, Lucas fearlessly diving under the water, Sophia, more cautious but determined, methodically perfecting each stroke. He noticed how Lucas would occasionally check on his sister, waiting for her to catch up before moving to the next exercise. He saw how Sophia would clap enthusiastically when her brother successfully completed a difficult move. The bond between them was palpable, even from a distance. When the lesson ended, the children emerged dripping and laughing, wrapped in towels by the poolside. Michael moved to the ice cream stand across the street as Olivia had suggested, ordering 2 cones, chocolate for himself, unsure what the children might prefer. Moments later, Olivia appeared with the twins in tow, their hair still damp, cheeks flushed from exertion. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as they approached. "Oh," Olivia said with carefully orchestrated surprise. "Lucas, Sophia, this is my friend Michael from America. Michael, these are my children." "Hello," Michael managed, throat tight with emotion. Lucas, outgoing and curious, immediately stepped forward. "You're the man from the beach, with my soccer ball." Michael nodded, smiling. "That's right. You have a good memory." "I remember everything," Lucas declared proudly. "Mom says I have an elephant's memory." Sophia hung back slightly, studying Michael with thoughtful intensity. "You're from New York?" she asked quietly. "I am," Michael confirmed, struck by her perceptiveness. "How did you know?" "Your accent," she replied simply. "We watched Home Alone 2 last Christmas and the people talked like you." Michael laughed, genuinely delighted by her observation. "Very good ear. Are you two going to have some ice cream?" Both children looked expectantly at their mother, who nodded permission. As they placed their orders, chocolate chip for Lucas, strawberry for Sophia. Michael caught Olivia watching him, her expression unreadable. They settled at a small table outside the ice cream shop, the children happily attacking their treats, while Michael struggled to act naturally. These were his children, his flesh and blood, and they had no idea who he was. The weight of that reality pressed on his chest, making each breath an effort. "What do you do in New York?" Lucas asked between licks of ice cream. Michael glanced at Olivia, uncertain how much to reveal. She gave a slight nod, permission to be honest. "I run a technology company," he answered. "We make computers and software." Lucas's eyes widened. "Like video games?" "Sometimes, yes," Michael smiled. "Do you like computers?" "I love them," Lucas exclaimed. "Mom lets me use her laptop sometimes. I'm learning to code on this website for kids. I made a game where a frog jumps over lily pads." "That's very impressive," Michael said sincerely, his heart swelling with unexpected pride. His son, had inherited his passion for technology. "Sophia is better at art, though," Lucas added generously. "She makes the best drawings in our class." Michael turned to his daughter, who was methodically eating her ice cream, careful not to let it drip. "Is that true? You like to draw?" Sophia nodded, still wary but warming slightly. "I like painting best, especially the sea and the mountains." "I'd love to see your work sometime," Michael said gently. "If that's okay with you." Sophia considered this seriously before nodding again. "Maybe, if Mom says it's okay." The conversation continued, Michael carefully asking questions about their lives, their school, their friends, their favorite things. With each response, he collected precious details like treasures. Lucas was allergic to cats but loved dogs. Sophia could already read at a third-grade level. They both spoke Spanish nearly as well as English. They were taking piano lessons, though only Sophia seemed to enjoy them. All too soon, Olivia checked her watch. "We should head home for dinner. Say thank you to Michael for the ice cream." "Thank you," they chorused, Sophia finally offering a small smile that made Michael's heart flip in his chest. "It was my pleasure," he replied, meaning it more deeply than they could possibly understand. "Maybe we'll run into each other again sometime." "Are you staying in Nerja long?" Lucas asked hopefully. Before Michael could answer, Olivia intervened. "Michael has important work in America, sweetie, but he's visiting for a little while." As they prepared to leave, Sophia suddenly turned back. "Do you have any kids, Mr. Michael?" The question knocked the wind from his lungs. He glanced at Olivia, whose expression had frozen. Michael swallowed hard. "No, I don't have any children at home." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. The weight of the deception, necessary though it might be for now, sat heavily on his shoulders. Sophia studied him with those perceptive eyes, his eyes, and for a terrifying moment Michael wondered if somehow she knew, if some genetic bond allowed her to sense the connection between them. "That's sad," she finally said. "Everyone should have someone who loves them." With that, devastatingly innocent observation, she took her mother's hand and walked away, Lucas waving enthusiastically over his shoulder. Michael remained at the table long after they disappeared from view, her words echoing in his mind. Everyone should have someone who loves them, The simplicity and truth of it pierced through all his wealth, his power, his carefully constructed defenses. That evening, as Michael sat on the balcony of his rented villa watching the sunset paint the Mediterranean gold and crimson, his phone rang. Richard again, this time with a tone of genuine alarm. "Mike, you need to come back. Isabella is making moves. She's contacted several board members suggesting you're having some kind of breakdown. There are rumors she's preparing documentation for a competency hearing." Michael should have been angry, should have immediately snapped into crisis management mode. Instead, he felt a strange detachment from the corporate drama that would have consumed him weeks ago. "Let her try," he said calmly. "The truth about what she did to Olivia will come out if she pushes this." "It's not just that," Richard continued. "There's buzz about a hostile takeover attempt being organized by Westridge Technologies. They're sensing weakness with both you and Isabella gone. The stock dropped 8 points today. 7 years ago, this news would have sent Michael racing to the airport, prepared to fight with every resource at his command to protect the empire he'd built. Now he found himself weighing something far more valuable against that empire: the possibility of knowing his children. "Handle it, Richard," Michael said after a long pause. "Whatever you need to do, whatever resources you need, they're yours. But I'm staying in Spain for now." "Who are you?" Richard asked, only half joking. "And what have you done with Michael Harrison?" "I'm figuring that out," Michael answered honestly. For the first time in a very long time. After ending the call, he found himself doing something he hadn't done in years. Writing. Not emails or corporate strategy documents, but a letter, handwritten on the villa's stationery, addressed to Olivia. "Today was the best day of my life," he began, and found once he started, the words wouldn't stop flowing. He wrote about what it felt like to see the twins, to hear their voices, to discover their personalities. He wrote about the pride he felt at Lucas's interest in coding and Sophia's artistic talent. He wrote about the grief of missing the first 6 years of their lives, and the overwhelming gratitude for even this small window into who they were. When he finished, he sealed the letter in an envelope and arranged for it to be delivered to Olivia's home. Not as a manipulation or a strategy, but as an honest expression of feelings he was only beginning to understand himself. As the stars appeared above the Mediterranean, Michael Harrison, titan of industry, notorious control freak, the man whose calculated decisions had built a technological empire, found himself in an entirely unfamiliar position, waiting, hoping, with absolutely no control over the outcome. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. Over the following weeks, a delicate dance developed. Michael would coincidentally appear at places where Olivia took the twins: the beach on Saturday mornings, the farmer's market on Wednesdays, the park near their home on Sunday. Afternoons. Each encounter was brief, carefully casual, but they gradually grew longer and more comfortable. Lucas warmed to him immediately, enthusiastically sharing his latest coding projects and peppering Michael with questions about technology. Sophia remained more cautious, observing with those eerily perceptive eyes, but slowly offering small glimpses into her world: a drawing she was proud of, a seashell she had found, observations about the books she was reading. Michael treasured each interaction, storing away every detail, every laugh, every piece of who his children were. He continued writing to Olivia each evening, not asking for anything, just sharing his thoughts, his gratitude, his developing understanding of all he had missed and all he hoped to make right. 3 weeks into this careful arrangement, Olivia finally extended an invitation that made his heart race. Dinner at their home. "Nothing fancy," she cautioned when she called to issue the invitation. "Just pasta with the kids. And Michael, they still don't know who you really are. This isn't that conversation yet. I'm still deciding." "I understand," he assured her, while his pulse thundered in his ears. "Whatever you're comfortable with, Olivia. I'm following your lead here." The modest Mediterranean house with its terracotta tiles and bougainvillea-draped walls was exactly as his investigators had described. but being invited inside felt like crossing a threshold far more significant than the physical doorway. Family photos lined the walls, Lucas and Sophia as infants, toddlers, preschoolers, capturing all the moments he had missed. A comfortable, slightly worn sofa dominated the living room, strewn with children's books and art supplies. It was nothing like his sterile penthouse in New York, yet it felt infinitely more like a home. Dinner was chaotic and wonderful. Lucas spilled his milk and recounted his entire day at school in one breathless monologue. Sophia meticulously separated the components of her spaghetti before eating them in a specific order. She had apparently developed. Olivia moved through it all with practiced efficiency, anticipating spills, gently redirecting conversations, radiating a maternal competence that Michael found himself in awe of. "Can Michael read our bedtime story?" Lucas asked as dinner wound down. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. "If he'd like to." "I'd be honored," Michael answered honestly. Bedtime involved a whole routine he was seeing for the first time. Teeth brushing supervised to ensure thoroughness. Pajamas negotiated. Lucas insisted his dinosaur ones weren't dirty despite evidence to the contrary. Stuffed. Animals arranged in specific configurations. Michael observed it all, committing every detail to memory, his heart aching for all the nights he'd missed. The twins shared a bedroom filled with books, toys, and hand-painted murals of the sea and mountains. Clearly Sophia's work, Michael realized with a surge of pride. They climbed into their beds, Lucas bouncing with excitement, Sophia arranging her blankets just so. Michael sat in the chair between their beds, the book they'd selected in his hands. "The Little Prince," he read the title aloud. "This was one of my favorites when I was young." "Really?" Sophia asked, the first personal connection she'd initiated. "Really?" he confirmed. "My mother used to read it to me." "Where is your mom now?" Lucas asked innocently. Michael swallowed hard. "She died when I was not much older than you." "That's sad," Sophia said softly, echoing her words. "From their first meeting." "It was," Michael agreed. "But I have good memories of her, like the time she read this book to me." As he began to read, Michael found himself using the same voices, the same inflections his mother had used decades ago. The children listened raptly, Lucas interrupting with questions, Sophia absorbing every word silently. When he finished the chapter, both children begged for more. "That's enough for tonight," Olivia said from the doorway where she had been watching. "Michael can read more another time." Another time. The simple promise of continuity made his chest tight. After goodnight kisses from their mother and shy goodnights to Michael, the children settled into their beds. Michael followed Olivia back to the living room, where she poured them both glasses of wine, and led him to the small patio overlooking the garden. "You're good with them," she said, after a long silence. "They make it easy," Michael replied. "They're extraordinary children, Olivia. You've done an amazing job." She sipped her wine, staring out at the starlit garden. "It hasn't always been easy." "I can't imagine," he said quietly. "I should have been here, I should have helped. "Yes, you should have," she agreed, but without the edge of bitterness that had characterized their earlier encounters. "But you're here now, and they like you. I like them too, more than I can express." Michael hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning in him for weeks. "Have you thought about telling them? About who I am?" Olivia sighed, setting down her glass. "Every day, but I'm scared, Michael. Not just of how they'll react, but of what happens after. You have a whole life in New York, a company, responsibilities. What happens when you have to go back? Do you just disappear from their lives again? Do you expect us to uproot everything and move to accommodate your schedule? Do you fly in once a month for a weekend visit? How does this work?" They were valid questions. Questions Michael had been wrestling with himself. His phone continued to buzz daily with increasingly urgent messages from New York. The corporate crisis Richard had warned about was escalating. Soon, he would have to make decisions that would affect thousands of employees, billions in market value, I don't know exactly how it works, he admitted, but I know what matters most now. Lucas and Sophia, and you, Olivia. Whatever shape that takes, whatever adjustments need to be made, they'll be mine to make, not yours. Olivia studied him in the dim light of the patio lanterns. The Michael Harrison I knew would never say that. His company was everything. The Michael Harrison you knew didn't understand what everything really meant. He met her gaze steadily. I'm not asking you to trust me yet. I haven't earned that. I'm just asking for the chance to show you, to show all of you, that I can be the father they deserve. Before Olivia could respond, Michael's phone rang. Not the standard ringtone for business calls, but the emergency alert he'd set up for Richard. He glanced at it apologetically. Take it, Olivia said, understanding in her eyes. It sounds important. Michael stepped to the far corner of the patio. Richard, what's happened? His friend's voice was grim. Isabella has gone public, Mike. She gave an interview to the Wall Street Journal claiming you're having a mental health crisis, that you've abandoned the company to chase a woman who manipulated you years ago. She's painting herself as the responsible steward trying to save Harrison Technologies from your self-destruction. Cold fury washed through Michael. She named Olivia? Not explicitly, but she gave enough details that people could figure it out. And Mike. She mentioned there might be alleged children involved. Michael's blood ran cold. The carefully constructed cocoon of privacy he'd been building around Olivia and the twins was being threatened. The board is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow, Richard continued. They're voting on a temporary leave of absence for you, with Isabella reinstated as acting CEO. If you don't appear to defend yourself, it's a foregone conclusion. Michael looked across the patio at Olivia, who was watching him with concern, clearly sensing something was wrong. I'll call you back, he told Richard, ending the call. He returned to Olivia, his expression grave. There's a situation in New York. Isabella has gone to the press with distortions about why I'm here. She's trying to take control of the company. Alarm flashed across Olivia's face. Did she mention us? The children? Not by name, but she alluded to you. To them. Michael ran a hand through his hair in frustration. I need to go back. Olivia, just for a few days to handle this. To protect all of you from her. The warmth that had been building between them over the past weeks visibly cooled as Olivia wrapped her arms around herself. So it begins, she said softly. The pull back to your real life. This isn't about the company, Michael insisted. This is about keeping Isabella from dragging you and the children into a public spectacle, about preventing her from using them as pawns in her game. Olivia was silent for a long moment. When would you leave? Tomorrow morning. I need to be at the board meeting. And when would you come back? The question hung between them, laden with significance beyond the immediate situation. When would he come back? Would he come back at all? Or was this the beginning of the pattern Olivia feared? Michael pulled between two worlds, the children left wondering why their newfound friend had suddenly disappeared. As soon as it's handled, Michael promised. A few days at most. And then we need to make some real decisions, Olivia. About the future. All of us. She nodded, her expression carefully neutral. The children will be disappointed you won't be here. For the beach picnic on Saturday, they were looking forward to showing you their favorite tide pools. The casual mention of plans they'd made, of expectations the twins had of him, hit Michael hard. He was already becoming woven into their lives, already in a position to disappoint them. I'll make it up to them, he said. I promise. Olivia's smile was sad. Don't make promises to them you can't keep, Michael. They've never experienced that kind of disappointment before. I've made sure of it. The weight of her words settled between them, the implication clear. Unlike their mother, the twins had never been let down by someone they trusted. Michael had no intention of being the first. As he prepared to leave, awkwardness descending as the evening ended on this uncertain note, Olivia suddenly caught his arm. Michael, she said quietly, Handle this quickly. The longer you're gone, the harder it will be for them when they learn who you really are. Children don't understand corporate emergencies. They only understand who shows up for them and who doesn't. The simplicity and truth of her statement struck him deeply. I understand. She walked him to the door where he turned to face her one last time. I meant what I said before, Olivia. Lucas and Sophia, and you, are what matter most now. I'll prove that to you. As he walked back to his villa beneath the Spanish stars, Michael Harrison found himself at a crossroads he had never anticipated. Behind him lay a lifetime of ambition, achievement, and solitary success. Ahead, a chance at something far more precious but infinitely more fragile. For the first time in his adult life, Michael wasn't certain which path to choose, only that the wrong choice would cost him everything that had suddenly come to matter. Write down where you're watching from in the comments, let's go. New York hit Michael like a physical force. The noise, the pace, the aggressive energy, so at odds with the gentle rhythms of Nurja. As his private car cut through Manhattan traffic toward Harrison Technologies headquarters, he stared at the glass and steel towers that had once represented everything he valued. Now they seemed like monuments to a hollow victory. The company's lobby fell silent as he strode through it, employees staring in surprise at the return of their CEO. Michael noted the changes in himself reflected in their reactions. The casual linen shirt and pants rather than his usual bespoke suit, the slight tan from Spanish sun, the beard he'd allowed to grow. He looked less like the intimidating titan of industry and more like a man who had remembered how to live. Richard met him at the elevator, relief evident on his face. Thank God you're here. The board convenes in 30 minutes. Isabella has been working them over individually. She's got about half of them convinced you've lost your mind. Let her try to make that case to my face, Michael replied calmly. What's the plan? Richard asked as they rode the executive elevator to the top floor. Michael's smile held no warmth. The truth, Richard. All of it. The boardroom fell silent as Michael entered, 18 pairs of eyes turning to him with expressions ranging from concern to suspicion to relief. At the far end of the table sat Isabella, who couldn't hide her momentary shock at his appearance before her face settled into a mask of calculated concern. Michael, she greeted, her voice dripping with false compassion. We're all so relieved you've returned. We've been extremely worried about your state of mind. I appreciate the concern, Michael replied evenly, taking his seat at the head of the table, though I'm curious about the need to express it to the Wall Street Journal rather than to me directly. The chairman of the board, Walter Chen, intervened. Michael, given the circumstances of your abrupt departure and extended absence combined with the unusual behavior reported by several sources, the board felt it necessary to consider a temporary leadership transition. Ms. Harrison has expressed willingness to step in until you've had time to address any personal issues. Michael nodded thoughtfully. And what unusual behavior has been reported exactly? Isabella leaned forward. Michael, this isn't an interrogation. We're all here because we care about you and the company you built. If you're going through something, stress, burnout, perhaps even a midlife crisis, there's no shame in taking time to address it properly. Several board members nodded in agreement. Michael noted them mentally. Isabella had done her work well. Actually, Michael said, his voice perfectly controlled, I think the board deserves complete transparency about the situation. 7 years ago, I made a catastrophic personal mistake based on fraudulent evidence that was presented to me. That mistake cost me my fiancée and, as I've only recently discovered, my children. A ripple of surprise ran through the room. Isabella's composed expression slipped momentarily. Michael, she interjected quickly, personal matters aren't necessary. On the contrary, Michael continued, they're entirely relevant when my chief financial officer, my own cousin, was responsible for fabricating that evidence and is now attempting to use my efforts to rectify that mistake as leverage for a corporate takeover. Dead silence fell over the boardroom. All eyes shifted between Michael and Isabella. That's absurd, Isabella said, but her voice lacked conviction. Michael is clearly— What I am, Michael interrupted, is in possession of substantial evidence proving that Isabella Harrison orchestrated an elaborate deception 7 years ago to separate me from my fiancé, going so far as to bribe employees and manipulate documents and photographs. He placed a folder on the table, the same evidence I'll be providing to the authorities for potential criminal charges. Isabella's face drained of color. You wouldn't dare? We're family. Family doesn't do what you did, Michael replied, his voice finally betraying emotion. You didn't just hurt me, Isabella. You kept me from my children. My son and daughter have lived 6 years of their lives without a father because of what you did. Walter Chen cleared his throat uncomfortably. These are serious allegations, Michael. And while deeply concerning if true, how do they relate to the immediate question of Harrison Technologies' leadership? Michael straightened, his gaze sweeping the boardroom. Because everything Isabella has told you about my mental state, my priorities, and my commitment to this company is a continuation of the same pattern of manipulation. Yes, I've been in Spain. Yes, I've been reconnecting with Olivia Martinez and meeting my children for the first time. And yes, this has changed my perspective on many things. He leaned forward, addressing each board member directly. But at no point has my dedication to Harrison Technologies wavered. What has changed is my understanding that success can't be measured solely by market share or stock prices. The company I built does important work that affects millions of lives. That matters to me now more than ever, not less, because I want to create a world my children can be proud of. Richard, watching from the side of the room, couldn't contain a slight smile as Michael, with characteristic strategic brilliance, shifted the narrative from personal crisis to visionary leadership. I've spent the past month gaining perspective that many of us lose in the relentless pace of business, Michael continued. I've remembered why I started this company in the first place. Not just to build technology, but to improve lives. If that makes me unstable in Isabella's estimation, so be it. But I suspect it makes me exactly the leader this company needs as we move into the future. Walter Chen studied Michael carefully. And your plans moving forward? Your physical presence here at headquarters? I intend to implement structural changes that will allow me to lead effectively while maintaining balance in my personal life, Michael answered honestly. That will include more delegation, more empowerment of our excellent executive team, and yes, likely more time working remotely. He turned to face Isabella directly. What it will not include is allowing someone who has demonstrated such fundamental dishonesty and self-interest to remain in a position of authority in this company. His voice hardened. Isabella Harrison is terminated from Harrison Technologies, effective immediately, with a full review of all financial decisions. She has influenced over the past 7 years. Isabella shot to her feet. You can't do this. I built this company with you. Without me, you'd still be coding in your mother's garage. That may be true, Michael acknowledged calmly. But it doesn't change what you did, or what you tried to do here. Today. Walter Chen raised a hand. I think the board needs to discuss these developments privately, with neither Michael nor Isabella present. Would you both please excuse us? As Michael and Isabella exited to opposite sides of the executive floor, Richard fell into step beside Michael. That was either the most brilliant or the most reckless board presentation I've ever witnessed, he murmured. You essentially told them you're planning a significant lifestyle change and dared them to challenge it. I told them the truth, Michael corrected, something I should have insisted on 7 years ago. They entered Michael's office untouched since his abrupt departure weeks earlier. As the door closed behind them, Michael's phone rang, Olivia calling from Spain. His heart jumped at the sight of her name on the screen. Olivia, is everything all right? The children are fine, she assured him. But there's something you should know. A woman came to the children's school today, claiming to be your business associate. She told the administration she needed to speak with me about an urgent family matter involving you. Michael's blood ran cold. Isabella, he breathed. Did she approach you? The children? No, Olivia said. The school called me first, thankfully. I didn't go in. Michael, how would she even know about us? About where we live? The same way I found you, he admitted grimly. Private investigators. Olivia, listen to me carefully. Isabella is dangerous. More dangerous than I realized. I need you to take the children and go somewhere safe until I can get back there. What's happening, Michael? Fear colored her voice now. Isabella just lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her future at the company. I underestimated how far she'd go to strike back. At me. Michael was already mentally calculating the fastest route back to Spain. Go to a hotel, somewhere not in your name. Use cash. I'll have my security team contact you with secure arrangements. The children have school, Michael. Their routine. Please, Olivia. He cut in, the urgency in his voice evident. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Isabella knows what matters most to me now. That makes you and the children targets. There was a long pause before Olivia responded, her voice calmer now, resolved. All right, we'll go. But Michael, come back, soon. The children keep asking when they'll see you again. The simple statement hit him harder than any corporate crisis could have. I'm on my way, tonight, as soon as this board meeting concludes. After ending the call, Michael turned to Richard. I need the jet refueled and ready in 2 hours. Richard stared at him. The board hasn't even voted yet. You could be removing yourself right when they decide to keep you on. Then they'll have to decide without me, Michael answered, already dialing his security chief. Some things can't wait. Walter Chen appeared in the doorway before Michael could complete the call. His expression was unreadable. The board has reached a decision, Michael. Michael straightened, phone still in hand. And you remain CEO of Harrison Technologies, Walter said, with certain conditions regarding governance and oversight that we can discuss in detail later. Isabella Harrison has been suspended pending a full investigation of her conduct. Relief washed through Michael, but it was quickly replaced by urgency. Thank you, Walter. I need to handle a security situation concerning my family immediately. Can we postpone further discussion until tomorrow? Walter's eyebrows rose. At the word family, a term he'd never heard Michael Harrison use in a personal context before. Of course, family comes first. 4 hours later, Michael was airborne over the Atlantic, his mind racing with contingency plans. Isabella had always been methodical, strategic, qualities he had once admired and now feared. If she had identified Olivia and the children as leverage against him, there was no telling what she might do in her desperation. His secure phone chimed with an encrypted message from his head of security. Subject IH, departed JFK for Madrid 45 minutes after your confrontation. ETA Spain, NATO 600 local. Isabella was already on her way to Nerja, a 6-hour head start. Michael stared out at the darkness beyond the jet's window, feeling a fear unlike any he'd known in business or personal crisis before. The stakes had never been higher. He closed his eyes, seeing Lucas's enthusiastic smile, Sophia's thoughtful gaze, Olivia's tentative trust just beginning to rebuild. He had lost them once through his own pride and blindness. He would not lose them again. Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go. Michael's private jet touched down in Malaga as the Spanish dawn broke over the Mediterranean. A waiting car sped him along the coastal highway toward Nerja, the beauty of the sunrise over the sea lost on him as he repeatedly tried to reach Olivia. Her phone went straight to voicemail, a security measure he had advised, but one that now left him in agonizing uncertainty. His security team had confirmed that Isabella had indeed landed in Spain, rented a car, and headed toward Nerja. What she planned to do there remained the terrifying unknown. The car had barely stopped in front of the small boutique hotel where his team had relocated Olivia and the twins when Michael was out the door, striding toward the entrance. The hotel manager, recognizing him from the security team's advance arrangements, hurried forward. "Senor." Harrison, your family is safe. They are in the private villa at the back of the property with your security personnel. Family. The word struck Michael anew, simultaneously foreign and profoundly right. He found them in the villa's courtyard garden, Olivia supervising as the twins splashed in a small fountain pool, trying to maintain normalcy despite the sudden disruption to their lives. Lucas spotted him first, his face lighting up. "Michael, you came back." Both children ran to him, wet and excited, while Olivia watched with visible relief. Michael knelt to greet them, his heart hammering against his ribs at the realization of how close he had come to losing this moment. "Did you bring us presents from America?" Lucas asked hopefully. "Lucas," Olivia admonished. "That's not polite." Michael laughed, genuine joy breaking through his tension. "Actually, I did." He produced 2 small packages from his jacket, last-minute purchases from the airport gift shop, wrapped hastily during the flight. Nothing fancy, I'm afraid. The children tore into the presents with enthusiasm. A New York Yankees cap for Lucas and a snow globe of the Manhattan skyline for Sophia. Simple, tourist items, but the children received them as if they were treasures. "Mom says we're on a special vacation," Sophia informed him seriously. "But we had to leave without my favorite books." "And my coding tablet," Lucas added. "Mom said we'll go back for them soon." "Are you on vacation too?" "The ma'am." Innocent questions pierced Michael's heart. They had no idea of the turmoil swirling around them, no understanding of why they had been suddenly uprooted from their home and routine. "Something like that," he answered, meeting Olivia's eyes over their heads. They needed to talk, urgently, but not in front of the children. As if reading his thoughts, Olivia turned to the security guard standing discreetly near the villa entrance. "Jim, would you mind watching the children while they finish their swim? Michael and I need to discuss something." Inside the villa, when they were certain they couldn't be overheard, Michael explained everything. The confrontation with Isabella, her suspension from the company, her flight to Spain ahead of him. "She's always been calculating, strategic," he concluded, pacing the living room. "But I've never seen her like this. Desperate, vindictive. I don't know what she's planning, but I know it involves using you and the children somehow." Olivia sank onto the sofa, her composed facade finally cracking. "This is exactly what I feared, Michael. The chaos of your world colliding with the stability I've built for them." "I know," he acknowledged, sitting beside her. "And I'm sorry, but we need to focus on keeping them safe right now. My team is monitoring Isabella's movements. Once we've confirmed she's left Spain, you can all return home." Olivia shook her head. "And then what? We just wait for the next crisis? The next time your business or your past threatens our safety? This isn't sustainable, Michael." She was right, and they both knew it. The precarious balance they'd been attempting, Michael as the friendly American visitor, gradually building relationships while maintaining the fiction that he was merely a friend of their mothers, couldn't continue. "The children need to know the truth," Michael said quietly. "About who I am. About everything." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "I've been dreading this conversation since the day they were born. How do I explain to them that their father didn't want them, only to reverse course 7 years later?" "That's not true," Michael objected, his voice breaking. "I didn't know about them. If I had, would it have made a difference?" Olivia challenged. "The man you were 7 years ago, who could believe I betrayed you without even giving me a chance to explain. Would he have been a good father? Would he have chosen fatherhood over his precious company?" The question hung between them, impossible to answer with certainty. The Michael Harrison of 7 years ago was almost unrecognizable to the man sitting there now, humbled by his mistakes and transformed by the love for children he'd just begun to know. Before he could respond, his phone rang, his security chief. "Sir, we've located Isabella Harrison. She's at Ms. Martin's home right now. Our team has the property under surveillance, but she appears to be waiting for us to return," Olivia realized, listening to Michael's side of the conversation. "She knows we'd have to go back eventually." Michael ended the call, his expression grim. This ends now. I'm going to confront her, finish this once and for all. Michael, no, Olivia protested. She's clearly unstable. Let your security team handle it or call the police. The police would mean publicity, questions about why my cousin is stalking my ex-fiancé and our children. Exactly the public spectacle we've been trying to avoid. Michael shook his head. Isabella responds to power, to direct confrontation. I need to face her. Myself. Then I'm coming with you, Olivia said, rising. These are my children we're protecting. I won't sit by while you and Isabella decide their fate. Michael wanted to argue, to insist she stay safely with the twins, but the determination in her eyes stopped him. This was the strength that had allowed her to build a life alone in a foreign country, to raise their children single-handedly while healing from her own wounds. He had no right to deny her this moment. All right, he conceded, but the children stay here with security. An hour later, their car pulled up near Olivia's house, stopping at a distance to assess the situation. Isabella's rental car was parked in the driveway. Through binoculars, Michael could see her sitting on Olivia's porch, scrolling through her phone with seeming casualness. She looked so normal, Olivia observed. If I passed her on the street, I'd never guess she was capable of what she did to us. Isabella has always been brilliant at presenting exactly the face she wants the world to see, Michael replied. It's what made her so effective in business, and so dangerous as an enemy. They approached the house on foot, Michael slightly ahead of Olivia in a protective stance. Isabella spotted them when they were halfway up the garden path, rising to her feet with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Michael, and you must be Olivia. After all these years, we finally meet. Get off my property, Olivia said coldly. Isabella ignored her, focusing on Michael. Was it worth it, cousin? Throwing away everything we built together for this domestic fantasy you've constructed? What do you want, Isabella? Michael demanded. You've lost. The board knows what you did. You have no future at Harrison Technologies. Perhaps, she acknowledged, her smile tightening. But neither will you once I'm finished. You see, I've spent the morning having a fascinating conversation with several financial journalists, sharing the touching story of how the great Michael Harrison abandoned his responsibilities to chase after a former flame and her convenient children. Michael took a threatening step forward. If you breathe one word about my family to the press, family? Isabella laughed. A woman you haven't seen in 7 years, and children you've known for what, a few weeks? That's not family, Michael. That's a midlife crisis. You would know all about family, wouldn't you, Isabella? Olivia interjected, her voice calm but cutting. Since you were willing to destroy one out of what? Jealousy? Obsession? The need to control? Isabella's composure slipped, her carefully maintained facade cracking to reveal the rage beneath. You know nothing about me or what Michael and I have built together. You were a distraction 7 years ago, and you're a distraction now. No, Michael contradicted firmly. She was the best part of me, the part I lost when you took her away. And those children are my future, Isabella. Nothing you say or do will change that. Such noble sentiments, Isabella sneered. Let's see how they hold up when your precious New York Times runs their expose on the psychological unfitness of Harrison Technologies' CEO. When your stock plummets and your board panics, when everything you've worked for crumbles because you couldn't keep your priorities straight. Michael stepped closer, his voice lowered. Do your worst, Isabella. Leak whatever stories you want, because here's what will happen next. I'll hold a press conference and tell the complete, unvarnished truth about you manipulated evidence to separate me from Olivia, about how you deliberately kept me from knowing about my own children, about the criminal fraud you committed both then and in your recent attempts to seize control of the company. He continued, implacable. Every media outlet in the country will run that story. Your reputation won't just be damaged, it will be obliterated. No company will hire you. No board will seat you. Your name will become synonymous with pathological jealousy and corporate sabotage. Isabella's face had drained of color, but she maintained her defiant stance. You wouldn't dare. It would hurt the company too much. Test me, Michael challenged softly. See if there's anything I wouldn't sacrifice to protect them now. Something in his tone, the absolute certainty, the readiness to burn his own empire to the ground if necessary, finally penetrated Isabella's denial. She looked between Michael and Olivia, reality sinking in at last. You really would choose them, she said, wonder and bitterness mingling in her voice. Over everything we built. In a heartbeat, Michael confirmed. Isabella's shoulders sagged, defeat washing over her features. You're a fool, Michael. Always were beneath that brilliant mind, too ruled by emotion. No, he corrected gently. My mistake was denying those emotions for too long, believing that success could replace connection, that power could substitute for love. Olivia stepped forward, surprising both. Cousins. Isabella, I don't expect you to care about what you did to me, but those children inside, they're innocent. They've done nothing to deserve being caught in this vendetta of yours. For the first time, something like shame flickered across Isabella's face. I never intended. The children weren't supposed to be. She couldn't finish the sentence. But they exist, Olivia pressed. They're real, and they matter, and they deserve better than becoming collateral damage in this war you've created. A tense silence fell over the three of them, broken only by the distant sound of waves against the shore and birds in the garden trees. Finally, Isabella straightened, composing herself with visible effort. I'll be returning to New York today, she said formally, as if concluding a business meeting. You won't hear from me again, but don't expect me to cheer for your happily ever after, Michael. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. As she walked toward her rental car, Michael called after her. Isabella. She paused, not turning around. Get help. Professional help. Not just for our sake, but for yours. She didn't acknowledge his words, sliding into her car and driving away without a backward glance. Olivia and Michael stood in silence, watching until the car disappeared from view. Only then did Olivia release a shuddering breath. Is it really over? With Isabella? I believe so, Michael answered. But we still have the most important conversation ahead of us. Olivia nodded, understanding immediately, telling the twins. They returned to the hotel in somber silence, each lost in thought about how to explain to two 6-year-olds that their mother's friend from America was actually their father, the father they had never known, existed, who had been absent for their entire lives until now. The twins were in the hotel suite's living room, Lucas building an elaborate structure with cushions while Sophia drew in her sketchbook. They looked up with matching smiles as Michael and Olivia entered. Can we go home now? Lucas asked. Lucas, hopefully. I miss my things. Soon, sweetie, Olivia promised, sitting on the sofa and patting the spaces beside her. But first, Michael and I need to talk to you both about something very important. The children sensed the seriousness in her tone, abandoning their activities to join her on the couch. Michael sat across from them, his heart pounding so hard he was certain everyone could hear it. You know how we've been spending time with Michael these past few weeks? Olivia began gently. There's a special reason for that, beyond him just being my friend from America. Sophia, perceptive, as always, studied Michael's face intently. Is it because he has the same eyes as me? The simple observation, so obvious yet somehow overlooked in their careful interactions, stunned both adults into momentary silence. Michael felt tears threatening at the corners of his eyes, amazed by his daughter's insight. Yes, sweetheart, Olivia confirmed, her voice wavering slightly. That's part of it. You see, Michael isn't just my friend. He's your father. Lucas's eyes widened to perfect circles. Our dad? The one in the picture you keep in your dresser? It was Michael's turn to be surprised. He looked questioningly at Olivia. I kept one photo, she admitted softly. I couldn't bear to erase you completely. Lucas was already bouncing with excitement. But this is awesome. I have friends with dads, but I never had one, and now I do, and he makes computers and— Lucas, Olivia gently interrupted the stream of consciousness. This is a big thing to understand. There's more to the story. Sophia, who had remained quiet, finally spoke. If you're our dad, where have you been all this time? Why didn't you live with us? The question they had dreaded, direct, impossible to deflect, and coming from the child whose thoughtful nature would not accept a simplified answer. Michael moved to kneel in front of Sophia, meeting her eyes, his eyes, directly. That's a very good question, Sophia. The truth is, I made a terrible mistake. Before you and Lucas were born, your mom and I had a misunderstanding, a very serious one. I thought something happened that didn't really happen, and I was too proud and too stubborn to listen when your mom tried to tell me the truth. Lucas frowned, trying to follow. You had a fight? A very big fight, Michael confirmed. And after that fight, we didn't see each other anymore. I went back to New York, and your mom came here to Spain. And she had us, Sophia concluded, her quick mind connecting the dots. Yes, Olivia said. But here's the important part. Your father didn't know about you. He didn't know I was going to have babies when we stopped seeing each other. So he didn't know you existed until very recently. Lucas looked bewildered. But why didn't you tell him about us? Olivia hesitated. The complexity of explaining adult mistakes to children suddenly overwhelming. That was my fault too. Michael intervened, accepting his share of responsibility. I hurt your mom's feelings very badly during our fight. I said things I shouldn't have said, and I didn't trust her when I should have. So she didn't think I would want to know about you. Were you mad at us too? Sophia asked quietly. The question, breaking Michael's heart. No, sweetheart, he said firmly, taking her small hands in his. I could never be mad at you or Lucas. I didn't know about you, but if I had, I would have wanted to be your dad more than anything in the world. But now you know, Lucas said, his practical nature seeking resolution. So you can be our dad now, right? You can live with us and everything? The hopeful simplicity of his son's question brought Michael's emotions dangerously close to the surface. He looked to Olivia, unwilling to make promises he couldn't keep or presume arrangements they hadn't discussed. Olivia took a deep breath. That's something your father and I need to figure out together, Lucas. There are a lot of grown-up things to consider. Michael has a big important job in New York, and we have our life here in Spain. But he wants to be with us now? Sophia pressed, still seeking reassurance. More than anything, Michael answered without hesitation. No matter what happens, no matter how we figure things out, I want to be your father from now on. If that's okay with you. Sophia studied him with that penetrating gaze that seemed to see through all pretense. Do you love us? Yes, Michael said, his voice breaking on the word. From the moment I learned about you. And more every day since I've gotten to know you. Sophia nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. Lucas, meanwhile, had moved from shock to excitement, firing questions in rapid succession. Do we call you Dad now? Can I tell my friends at school? Will you teach me how to make real computers? Can we visit New York and see the tall buildings? Michael laughed, relieved by his son's enthusiasm, even as he navigated the emotional minefield of the moment. Yes to all of those things if it's okay with your mom. Both children turned expectantly to Olivia, whose eyes shimmered with unshed tears. We'll figure it all out together, she promised. The important thing is that we're all being honest with each other now. The conversation continued, the children's questions ranging from the profound to the practical to the absurd, as they processed this monumental revelation in their young lives. Through it all, Michael remained kneeling at their level, answering with complete honesty, committing each moment to memory as the precious gift it was. Later that evening, after the emotional day had finally caught up with the twins and they had fallen asleep in the hotel suite's bedroom, Michael and Olivia sat on the terrace, the Spanish stars twinkling above them. "They took it better than I ever imagined," Olivia admitted, cradling a glass of wine. "Children are resilient," Michael said. "And ours, are extraordinary." "They are," she agreed. Then, after a pause, "Lucas's question still stands though. What happens next, Michael? You have a life in New York. We have ours here." It was the question Michael had been wrestling with since his confrontation with the board. The practical reality behind the emotional reconciliation. The details that would determine whether this fragile new beginning could survive. "I've been thinking about that," he said carefully. "What would you say to a compromise? Write down where you're watching from in the comments. Let's go." 1 year later. The terrace of the cliffside villa overlooked the Mediterranean, its panoramic views capturing the sun setting over the sea in a blaze of gold and crimson. Long tables draped in white linen stretched across the space, adorned with lanterns and bougainvillea blossoms. Soft guitar music drifted on the warm evening air as guests mingled, glasses of sangria and cava in hand. Michael stood near the stone railing, taking in the scene with a sense of wonder. Lucas and Sophia darted between the guests in their formal attire. Lucas in a miniature suit he was already managing to wrinkle. Sophia in a flowing sundress, her dark hair crowned with flowers. Their laughter, uninhibited and joyful, was the sweetest sound he had ever known. Richard approached, clapping a hand on Michael's shoulder. "Still hard to believe. This is your life now," he observed, gesturing toward the relaxed gathering. "The Michael Harrison I knew a year ago would sooner jump off this cliff than host a casual outdoor dinner party." Michael smiled, acknowledging the truth in his friend's words. "The Michael Harrison you knew a year ago was half a man pretending to be whole." From across the terrace, Olivia caught his eye. She was radiant in a simple white dress, her hair loose around her shoulders, looking nothing like the formal wedding gowns and elaborate ceremonies they might have planned in their first engagement years ago. This celebration, intimate, meaningful, focused on family rather than spectacle, reflected who they had become. The past year had been one of profound change and careful negotiation. After the tumultuous revelation of Michael's identity to the twins, they had embarked on the complex process of blending their lives across continents. The solution they'd reached wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Michael had restructured Harrison Technologies, appointing Richard as Chief Operating Officer and establishing remote work protocols that allowed him to lead the company while spending half of each month in Spain. The twins continued their schooling in Nerja, maintaining the stability of the only home they'd ever known, while experiencing expanded horizons through regular visits to New York. Olivia had expanded her psychology practice, accepting a research position with an international children's mental health organization that allowed for flexible scheduling. The arrangement demanded sacrifice from everyone. Michael missed key business meetings. Olivia juggled professional opportunities. The children navigated the complexity of a transcontinental family. But with each passing month, the rhythm of their shared life grew more natural, the bonds between them stronger. "Almost time," Richard reminded him, checking his watch. "Nervous?" Michael laughed. "After everything we've been through to get here, this is the easy part." As if on cue, Lucas appeared at his side, important in his role as best man despite being only 7 years old. "Dad, Mom says it's time to get ready. Everyone's taking their seats." "Dad." The word still sent a thrill through Michael each time he heard it. In the months since that emotional revelation in the hotel suite, he had worked tirelessly to earn the title, attending school events, helping with homework, learning the bedtime routines, being present in all the ways that mattered. "Let's not keep her waiting then," Michael replied, straightening his son's crooked tie. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. Under an arch of flowers facing the sea, with the twins standing proudly beside them, Michael and Olivia exchanged vows not of blind optimism, but of hard-won wisdom. 7 years ago, I thought I knew what love was, Michael said, his voice carrying to the gathered friends and family. I thought it was a feeling, a passion, something that happened to you. I know now that real love is a choice you make every day, to trust, to forgive, to grow together. He looked at the twins, then back to Olivia. You gave me the greatest gifts of my life, even when I didn't deserve them. You built a beautiful family through strength I can only aspire to. Today, I'm not promising you perfect happiness or a life without challenges. I'm promising you that I choose you, all three of you, every day, through whatever comes. Olivia's eyes shimmered with tears as she spoke her own vows. When we parted 7 years ago, I thought that chapter of my life was closed forever. I built walls to protect myself, to protect our children. I never imagined those walls coming down again. She squeezed his hands. But life has taught me that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings rise from what we think are endings. I choose you, Michael, not the man I thought you were before, or the man I feared you might be, but the man you've become. The father I see with our children. The partner who has shown me that it's never too late for truth to heal what pride has broken. As they exchanged rings, Sophia stepped forward with solemn importance, carefully carrying a small velvet pillow. But instead of traditional bands, it held 3 interlocking pendants, a symbol Michael had designed to represent their reconnected family. One for each of us, Michael explained as he placed the first around Olivia's neck. Different, but connected just like we are. After the ceremony, as the celebration continued under the stars, Michael found a quiet moment with the twins at the edge of the terrace. Lucas was experimenting with how many shrimp he could stack on a single toothpick, while Sophia sketched the sunset in the small notebook she carried. Everywhere. Are you happy? Michael asked them, still sometimes haunted by the fear that his presence in their lives had disrupted the stability Olivia had worked so hard to create. Duh, Dad, Lucas replied with 7-year-old directness. We got to have 2 parties, one here and one in New York, and now I get to tell everyone my dad makes the computers in their school. Sophia, thoughtful as always, set down her pencil. I like that we're a whole family now, she said simply. It feels right. Her perception, so beyond her years, never failed to humble Michael. It does feel right, doesn't it? Later, as the evening wound down and the last guests departed, Michael found Olivia standing alone at the terrace railing, looking out at the moonlight shimmering on the dark water. Having second thoughts already, Mrs. Harrison? He teased gently, wrapping his arms around her from behind. No, she replied, leaning back against him. I was just thinking about that day at the cafe when you first found us. If you had told me then that we'd be here a year later, you would have had me committed. Michael finished for her. She laughed softly. Probably, but I'm glad I was wrong. I'm glad we found a way. Speaking of finding a way, Michael said, his tone turning more serious. I have something to tell you. I didn't want to bring it up before the wedding, but I've made a decision about Harrison Technologies. Olivia turned in his arms, searching his face. What kind of decision? I'm stepping down as CEO at the end of the year, he said simply. Richard will take over full operations. I'll retain my position as chairman of the board, but in a more advisory capacity. Surprise widened Olivia's eyes. Michael, you don't have to do that. We've been making the arrangement work. We have, he agreed. But it's not just about making it work. It's about priorities. Harrison Technologies will always be part of who I am, part of what I've built. But it's not everything anymore. He took her hands in his. I'm establishing a new foundation, the Sophia Harrison Foundation for Rare Childhood Diseases, based here in Spain with satellite operations in New York. It will fund research, treatment, support for families. All the things we've talked about wanting to do. Understanding dawned in Olivia's expression. Because of Dr. Martinez's diagnosis for Sophia. Last month, they had received the news during a routine checkup. Sophia had inherited a rare genetic condition from Olivia's side of the family. manageable but serious, requiring ongoing medical supervision. The kind of diagnosis that changed perspectives instantly. Partly, Michael acknowledged. Michael, knowing that our daughter faces medical challenges makes it personal, but it's more than that. It's about building something meaningful together, something that draws on your expertise in child psychology and my business experience. A true partnership, Olivia murmured. Exactly. And something we can eventually involve the twins in as they grow older. A family legacy beyond corporate success. Olivia's eyes filled with emotion. When I met you 15 years ago, I never imagined this is where we'd end up. After everything. The misunderstanding, the separation, the lost years. Not lost, Michael corrected gently. Different than we planned, but not lost. Those years gave us Lucas and Sophia. They made you the incredible mother and woman you are. They taught me what truly matters. From inside the villa came the sounds of the twins laughing, probably up well past their bedtime in the excitement of the evening. Listen to that, Michael said softly. That sound, that's what success really is. Not market share or stock prices. Not corner offices or magazine covers. Olivia leaned up to kiss him, sealing their new beginning under the Spanish stars. Welcome home, Michael. Harrison. As they walked hand in hand back toward the villa, toward their children, Michael reflected on the strange, winding path that had led him here. 7 years of emptiness, of success hollowed by loss. A revelation that had shattered everything he thought he knew. A journey across oceans to find what had been missing. And now, this moment, imperfect, challenging, but real. A second chance he hadn't deserved but would spend the rest of his life earning. A family reunited against all odds. Everyone should have someone who loves them, Sophia had told him on that first meeting at the ice cream stand. In finding his way back to Olivia, in discovering his children, in rebuilding what pride and deception had destroyed, Michael Harrison had finally learned the truth of those simple, profound words. He had found his someone, his someones. And in that discovery, he had found himself.